Welcome to this week's episode of Your Stock Request for the 9th of November. Every week I will look at the charts of a few different stocks as requested by you. Just email us at mail@fairmontequities.com. There's a limit of one per person and there's no guarantee that your stock will be covered depending on the demand. Also just take note of our disclaimer, any advice is general only. Okay, the first stock that we have today is OFX Group. So this is a daily chart. We can see that price action over the last several weeks has been pretty negative. If I zoom out to a weekly chart, it looks a little bit better. What I've noticed is, if we put a horizontal line here, we can see that the shares very briefly took out this high. So we could say that it's made it's making some higher highs, hopefully. And what it's done here is it's made a higher low, just very marginally. So we could say that this is potentially, a buying opportunity. It's made a higher low. The only thing I don't like about it is the fact that the sell-off here was quite steep. So ideally I want to see the opposite occur. So I'd prefer to see a steep rally and then a very sort of laboured pullback. So this has done the opposite. So it's not massively bullish, but if you're looking at a small trade and you like to take on a bit of risk, I think it can potentially rally from here, but it's probably not my cup of tea, to be honest. Okay, the next one we have is West Oz, WIC. This is a pretty good looking chart. I mean, it's been doing all the right things since the lows here in 2016. This is a weekly chart. So clearly it underwent a bit of consolidation before breaking out several weeks ago, and it's been having a good run. And here's the volume. We can see that volume's picked up in the last couple of weeks. So it should kick on. For those familiar with candlesticks, you might note that this candlestick here, so far for this week isn't extremely bullish. It could potentially be a reversal. So just the thing to bear in mind with that is we need confirmation first. So we've had a bit of a run up, and we've had this sort of indecisive week, and the week's not over yet, of course. So if the stock opened lower next week and then basically saw a bit of selling throughout the course of next week, then I'd say that's a negative sign. Otherwise, I wouldn't be too worried about this. I like the volume coming in, as I said, and I think this should trend higher for the time being. The next stock we have is Department 13. To be honest, I haven't heard of this one before. Chart's a bit messy. Look, it's retesting this low here. Let's put a horizontal line. So potentially it could bounce off that, but we could see that price action's been all over the place. Volume has been drifting back a bit, which I guess is a positive. So look, it could potentially bounce here, but there's no reason why it can't just continue drifting back towards this low. So can't get too excited. I'd rather see a really nice rally off the lows on, preferably with a bit of volume, and then I'd start to get a bit more interested. If it took out this peak here, let's just zoom in. So it looks like that's around that 11.5 cent region. I'd like to see it close above that, to be honest, and then I'd feel a bit more comfortable with that chart. Okay, next one, Melbourne IT. Sticking with our weekly charts. So just zooming out for the last 3 years. It's really kicked up recently. We can see that 2016 wasn't very good for the stock. But then earlier this year it kicked up. We could see another consolidation here. A bit of a pennant or flag, and breaking high. So at the moment it looks like it should continue higher. So you recall that first stock, OFX, I didn't like the fact that when the recent pullback was quite sharp. Melbourne IT is doing the opposite, which is a good thing. So far this year, it's doing the right things in that the moves up have been quite impulsive, and then when it does move back, it's quite choppy and doesn't make any ground lower. So that's a positive sign for Melbourne IT. So far, if I was in it at the moment, I'd stick with it. Okay, the next one is Qantas. So the question is, do we short Qantas? There's been a couple of occasions where I thought the chart looked fairly negative, but I didn't go on to make the step to short the thing because it was still just too risky. There just hasn't been enough confirmation that it wants to roll over. So I've just zoomed into the daily chart. So what you'll notice is this is the peak in October. Obviously, it got sold off here. I think it might have been their AGM there a few weeks ago or a trading update. But we could see all the buying came in on that particular day. Reversed that the next day, but we could see that the shares have pretty much held up. They haven't continued getting sold off. On a smaller scale, we could see a potential 5-wave decline underway. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is 5. So we could see that we've got yesterday's low here, sort of retesting this low. So maybe it comes back a little bit. What I'd be looking for, well, there's a couple of support zones to keep in mind. So we could see that right where it is now is some pretty good support. And also if we were to do a bit of trend line, there's a bit of support there. So I briefly broke it yesterday intraday and then managed to rally back above it. So while Qantas is doing this, it's not showing enough weakness to do anything on the short side. I think it really needs to break firstly this support zone, but preferably this previous low. So we've got higher highs and higher lows. Until it breaks one of these lows, it looks like it might just stay up at these levels. Obviously, oil's had a pretty good run, and that's a negative for Qantas. I think oil can push higher, but you'd have to think that much of the move has already been made in the oil price. It might just consolidate here, and that'll give Qantas some breathing space. Okay, finally, Amcor. So I could just go back to a weekly chart. Should be a little bit more weakness on this. What I've noticed is, again, just looking at this peak here, share price came off, tried to rally. We could see it just slightly made a new high before getting sold off. So we could see these sharp declines. It should head back to the bottom of the range, whether it's there or we look at the actual shadow of the candle. So either way, I'd be looking at a $14 target for Amcor, and then we'll just see what it does there. If it can find support and bounce, then that would be a good buying opportunity. Definitely better than buying it up here in the high 16s. Okay, well that's it for today. Remember, send in your requests for next week and do the right thing by your mates and share this video on Twitter and Facebook.